we back. I will not be defeated by technical issues. So, what did I learn? This week, you reboot twice, not just once. And then your audio works. So, do with that information what you will, my friends. Welcome back, though. Sorry again about the technical issues. Being a smaller channel, well, we work on a budget. In the end, it's all about the hobby. So I do appreciate your patience. Tonight we're diving back into DEI. We're diving back into diversity, equity, inclusion in video games. Something that my new subscribers and new viewers will find is near and dear to my heart. Computers, technology, video games, all facets of the industry. But yeah, for tonight we're going to be talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how the landscape is changing and how the landscape is being warped. All right, let's go.
This is a certified hood classic.
Sakafet, I think we are back on. Yeah, we're back on. All right. We are having technical issues like nobody's business tonight, y'all. I apologize. Sakafet to everybody that's out there, to all my beautiful people in the world, salutations and salute. Welcome to the show. Technical issues be damned. It's just one of those nights, y'all. Been a busy day, been a busy week. So we at least made it here, right? We're here together. Thank you very much for coming out for the show. To start off with tonight, we are diving back into DEI, as I mentioned during the intro. We're getting into a little more about gaming again and how the spiral of DEI is taking over. In this case, we're going to be talking about the game Resident Evil. That's another one that's real close to my heart, near and dear. It's one of those series that I started playing from the very beginning. So it started with Resident Evil 1, and then I played everything but Code Veronica for the game heads that are out there, for the gamers. I have not played Code Veronica, and I haven't played all the way through 2, old school 2. So I definitely haven't played new school 2. Other than that, yeah, we're just going to be talking about a little bit of everything surrounding this and surrounding the game and surrounding the way that DEI is spiraling out of control. So give me 1 second to pull this up here. Let's see here. All right. There we go. And the first thing we're going to look at here is an article surrounding a industry CEO by the name of Irina Pieria. She actually brags in a Twitter post that has Twitter that has since been deleted. She actually brags about excluding white male characters from alpha builds of upcoming game Haven. Unleashed Games founder CEO Irina bragged about excluding white male characters from the company's upcoming game Haven. Let's get into this a little bit further. Just wait until they notice that none of our starting characters in our alpha build are white males. None out of 6. So my first thought when I initially heard that this kind of rhetoric was posted was there's always a why. What provokes someone to go this far and to post something that far? We understand, and this is coming from somebody who's participated in the diversity, equity, and inclusion sector. I was part of a program at one of my previous jobs, and I worked closely with the consultants that were hired by that previous job to come in, evaluate, and then provide an assessment based on a combination of national statistics as well as their own formula for what the DEI score was for that organization. And I worked with that consulting company to improve the situation and improve the environment at that job. So I have some knowledge of how these processes work. I have some knowledge of how the thinking happens behind the scenes for these kinds of programs when they're rolled out to organizations. Let me start with this first and foremost. I think that there is, for the individuals who are radical adopters of anything, I think that there is a sense of not only guilt, but personal, something personal that hasn't been resolved. There's something personal there that, and it may be very well may be guilt, but I think that that's part of it. And again, this is speaking in the radical sense, right? This isn't speaking in the sense of the average everyday individual who completely understands that treating a human like a human is what we should be doing, right? So looking at her posts, and the article goes on to read, in a response to her original post, so she goes on and she kind of doubles down on everything. These are deleted posts, but everything lives forever on the internet. Remind yourself of that. Anything you put out there lasts forever. Anybody can clip your stuff. Anybody can take screenshots and have at it. So as we're moving through the article here, what she's got going on is she basically doubles down. And, again, I will say representation matters. And I don't know how many games have lacked female characters or created gameplay penalties for being a female character, or created vertex shading, which is a artistic technique within games. You use an artistic technique to kind of overlay over top of white skin to make it darker or a darker shade. As opposed to the character actually being created in that shade. They just create a base character, create a base model, then lay colors over it, put different clothes over it, skin complexions over it, put different clothes on it, and you have all the little NPCs that exist in your video game, right? So representation matters. Inclusivity is not the same as racism. Enjoy hating on me for today. I'll go back to making games. So she was responding to she was obviously responding to people who were hitting back at her on this. When we go back to this again, I have to say, just wait until what she says here, right? Just wait until they notice that none of our starting characters in our alpha build of the video game. Alpha builds are usually early builds of a video game. So in their early build of the video game, none of the characters are white males. None out of 6. If a black person said it, they would get burned at the stake in the media. It's a non sequitur. No one else, no other group of individuals can say anything like that at all. And this is a white individual hiding behind diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay, all right. So in my mind, right? In my mind, looking at the individual, looking at where she's coming from, she might need reeled in, right? Everybody who's out here in the social media space has already had their time with her. She put this out here in the public. When somebody puts something out in the public, like I said, it lives forever. People have screenshot this. People have, gone at her on this. I'm sure she's gotten all kinds of hate messages regarding this. I do believe her Twitter account now is private. So I'm not one to want to jump hot and go chase these people down and make their lives any more difficult than the rest of society will. But I do have an interest, right, in, well, let's take a look, right? Let's take a look in what her company represents. Okay, this is Unleashed. Oh, there's some employees from Unleashed. I'm guessing they're probably some of the higher ups. Is their slideshow's not working? No, their slideshow's not working. So let's see, meet the team. Well, there's Irina. There's Dave and Chris. They got Tom and a Brian and a Jason. And we're back to Irina. My guess is Tom's the diversity hire. I mean, is that the whole team? So this is where This is where I question the motivation behind individuals. And this is why I like to call individuals, this is why I like to call out individuals for virtue signaling. Because, I don't know where this studio is located globally. I don't know if there's a deficit in their area, or perhaps it's not good optics for their business model to have faces of other ethnicity on their team, right? I've been told that, by the way, that I don't fit the direction and the appeal of the team. Yes, someone was so bold as to tell me that. So, looking at her posts, looking at the team behind the game company, I have to ask, is this true and honest DEI adoption for this organization? Or is this poisoned rhetoric and radical thinking and knee-jerk reaction? I'm going to go with the latter. Again, here's their team. And they're going to bandwagon jump on diversity, equity, and inclusion, only to turn around, not have any representation of diversity. I mean, it's all here for you guys, other than our single hire friend. Poor Tom. He's catching the brunt of that. So, I mean, it just seems like this is a case where, and I mentioned this before, so there's a lot of acronyms that you're going to hear here. But the other acronym that's real big here is ESG, which is the social governance guidelines that are backed by big Wall Street. And within those social governance guidelines lies DEI, lies diversity, equity, and inclusion. So you've got the DEI angle underneath the larger umbrella, the larger economic capitalist piece of ESG that is governing how well this company is adopting behaviors and habits and representations in order to boost its stock portfolio, because more people are going to feel included in whatever said industry it is, right? So it seems like a win-win here. And realistically, if a company's approaching it in the right manner and they're educating people in the right manner, hint, hint, the North Face, not doing so well as far as I'm concerned. But if the company is adopting these things in a natural manner, in a natural way, we worship together in whatever religion, we play together, we work together. We've been existing together for years here in the United States of America, in the West. So there was almost a point where we were coming to grips with making fun of and appreciating race as opposed to it being wielded as a weapon. So let's move on. With the DEI push, we're going to get into new discoveries in the gaming space here as far as what DEI programs are looking like for gaming developers. So this is from Niche Gamer, by Niche Gamer, on March 25th, just last week, everybody. Microsoft urges developers not to create female characters with exaggerated body proportions on their official site to support gaming developers. And of course, we have a beautiful picture here of Stella Blade, Eve. I believe her name is Eve from Stella Blade. Again, I don't have a PS5, So I'm not going to be playing it from day one. I think it's a demo dropped a couple days ago. So I'm not going to be playing it from day one. But prayers up, it's going to come to the PC. Prayers up. I don't know. I might have to pick up a PS5 maybe a little bit later down the road when they start going in on discounts. So we'll see. All right. The site that Microsoft has created here to support their gaming developers is called the Product Inclusion Action page. It helps customers feel seen. It includes bullet points and considerations, urging developers in what direction they're urging developers when they're working on games. On Twitter, one user pointed out that the language expressly condemned certain female characteristics as reinforcing negative gender stereotypes. And hey, what's up? President Josh, thank you for joining. If you tried to catch this show earlier or you caught a dead link on YouTube, I apologize. And again, to Team Replay, if you're here, thank you so much for making it to the show. Last week we had technical issues. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we had technical issues. Today we have technical issues. Like I said, it's a small channel. I really appreciate you guys being here. I'm trying my best. Things happen. Last week it was 1 reboot. This week it was 2 reboots. So after 2 reboots this week, so we're doing a little bit better, just a little bit. All right. So going into this, are you reinforcing any negative gender stereotypes? Are you unnecessarily introducing gender and gender barriers into your code or design? Are you unnecessarily introducing gender and gender barriers into your code or code design? I haven't looked into this. Feel free to comment down below the video. Let me know what your thoughts are. Are you unnecessarily introducing gender and gender barriers into your code or design? Are you creating playable female characters that are equal in skill and ability to their male peers? Are your female characters equipped with clothing and armor that fits their tasks? Do they have exaggerated body proportions? That's a loaded question. It's also a 3-parter. Are you creating playable female characters that are equal in skill and ability to their male peers? Can anybody think of a game where if you play as the girl, the female identified, cis, whatever it is, to my audience, not you guys, the regulars, but you know. So is that a thing? Is that a thing? I ask you. I've been playing games since Pong, and feverishly since the first Pitfall came out on the Apple IIe. When I have time, you know what I'm saying? I slide in video games when I have time. If I'm on a plane, I'm playing a video game. If I'm bored and not reading, I'm playing a video game. But they are not a major part of my life. So, I mean, I can't think of one video game where a female character was skill capped or... Look, I'm going to put it like this. Pieces of shit in life are pieces of shit. If somebody at some point programmed, you know what I'm saying, and they crippled a character in a video game because it was a female character, like, I know stats shift because you have specialties for characters. You have some characters that are going to be your heavies. You have other characters that are going to be, you know what I'm saying, your lights or your rogues. It is what it is. Everyone has a specialty. Everyone's not equal on the battlefield. Some people have specialized duties. So I don't know. People are out there complaining about shit like that. But you know what? I'll leave it to you guys to help me on that one. Are your female characters equipped with clothing and armor that fits their tasks? Well, if it's in a fantasy adventure game, I don't know in my fantasy what your task may be. But I mean, and you respectfully, but a fantasy game is a fantasy game, and that's what they're targeting. They're targeting imagination. They're targeting fantasy. Eve is a pure example of that. We're going to get into we're going to get into something else here, and I'm just going to bring this one up because no one's talked about it quite yet, and I find it hilarious. But the main subject matter for this evening, Africa and the Resident Evil 5 video game. When we get to that, we're going to talk about a character from that game that I think the gents in the room, I think you're going to enjoy. So let's continue here. Next up is, do they have exaggerated body proportions? So we talked about Eve before. Eve does not have exaggerated body proportions. Actually, let's go ahead and fast forward here. This is the model. That's her. They're taking pictures of her doing the body scans for the video game. That's her. Actually, it looks like poor little girl, poor woman. Somebody need to feed her a sandwich. She's adorable and everything, but they even put more thigh meat on the the video game character than they did on her. Oh, come on. It's not refreshing. Can't watch it a second time. Oh, here we go. Yeah. There's your body model. There's the unrealistic body standard. There's the person that doesn't exist. There's the woman created in our fantasy. Yeah, they actually made no hate to Shin Jae-yoon. Yeah, no hate on Shin Jae-yoon, but sweetie, your legs are super slender. You need a sandwich in my book. And Eve looks a little bit better. Hey Queen, how you doing this evening? Miss Queen Sun Kiss. What's up? Thanks for joining. And Josh, the Atari Nintendo games that were out. Yep, 100%. Donkey Kong, Joust, Galaga, all the classics, man. All the classics. And what's funny is I grew up on the early versions of those classics on the old Apples and the Commodore. Before I even got a gaming system. When I was young, the gaming systems were out. I didn't get a gaming system until I was older because my parents wanted me only on educational stuff. And even though I was able to play Space Invaders and Galaga and Joust and Pitfall. Can't forget Pitfall. Oregon Trail. Come on, Oregon Trail on the Apple was the best. That was the beginnings. So even though I had those, they were still a little bit of education built in. There was this one. If anybody's out there and you remember the old Apple and Commodore games that were out there, there was one game that was out where it was a spelling game that operated the same way as Space Invaders and Galaga, but it taught you how to spell words and stuff. But anyway, yeah. So I was always the kid that got the educational games, no video games until I got older, until I was in my teens. Let's see. When the story allows, do you show male characters who display a full range of emotions, including joy, sadness, and vulnerability? No diddy. I'm not sure how I feel about that because if I do remember when Morden Solace got murked and deleted because the tower blew up in Mass Effect 3, if you play that storyline, Commander Shepard went, oh. That was a sad face. And the music was playing in the background. Ding, 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 ding. Oh. Is that not a range of emotion? What do you want? What do you want from me? I don't understand what these people are asking. And my response, I don't know what these people are asking. That is the response that these game devs have been dealing with. That is the reason why storyline quality has tanked. That is the reason why dialogue has tanked. It's forced dialogue. It's like a forced response. The creators, the devs of these video games and the voice actors and the writers behind it, the art is being drained from these people because they are being distracted by diversity tactics like this bullshit. That is exactly what's happening. You're stifling the artistic side of these individuals. Again, this is coming from a company. Now, this isn't coming from a company who has been accused of and critically shown to not have diversity hires or have a diverse staff or have games that lack diversity. This is coming from a game company of how many people? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and only one of which is Asian. All right. Anyway, there has been a harassment campaign surrounding a Steam curator. So Steam is a video game marketplace. If you have a PC or, if you have a console too, I do believe Steam is all over the place. Especially like the Steam Deck, if you've ever heard of that. It's like a Nintendo Switch, but it's for PC. It's PC based. The Steam marketplace allows people to create communities and discuss things and have dialogues. So a gentleman created a curated page of games where extreme tactics and extreme talk of this diversity stuff, like we're seeing examples of tonight, where those games are being, what's the name of this game? Haven? Let's go back here. Yeah, Haven. This game will more than certainly pop up on that curator's page and be flagged as being a game heavy. I think this is a screenshot or concept shot or something of the characters. Yeah, it's going to be criticized as being heavily in the DEI segment and being a game that emphasizes the message as opposed to emphasizing fun and the story. The rich story gets sacrificed for this forced message of diversity, this forced message of what's acceptable, body standards, sexual preference, things being forced in our faces and forced into our entertainment that we don't necessarily ask for. All right, let's move on here. What we're going to do is we're going to take a turn back. We're going to turn back the clock of time here. We're going to take a look at the original trailer for Resident Evil 5. You should be able to hear this. Let me double check. Who knows? Sound issues are just a thing over here. So who knows if this is going to work or not. Again, I appreciate you guys for hanging out with me and anybody else who made it back to the stream. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Forgive me. Smaller channel. I got technical issues. Things happen, man. I learned this evening, again, if you didn't catch me talking about it earlier, you don't have to reboot. The requirement now is no longer rebooting once. You should reboot twice, and then your shit works. So, hey, we're back. That's all that matters. And y'all are here with me. So thank you very much for that. All right. So let's make sure we got volume on this. See, Josh, you still out there? Queen? Anybody who's out there in the chat? Give me a 1.
More and more, I find myself wondering if it's all worth fighting for. Maybe one day, I'll find out. Should have seen it coming. It didn't take long after the fall of the Umbrella Corporation for their bioweapons to end up in the hands of terrorists. A new era of bioterrorism descended upon vulnerable countries, shifting the balance of power throughout the region. People in the destabilized areas soon feared another incident like Raccoon City was inevitable.
Oh, yeah.
My name is Sheva Alama.
Hey, Sheva.
We secured the underground route to the coordinates. This whole town's gone to hell. The people here, they're acting like those Ganado detailed in the Kennedy report. What the hell happened in here? Was the setup a setup?
We last met at
Wesker.
the Spencer estate, wasn't it? Poor performance indeed.
You say, wow, you two are just on top of this thing, aren't you? The balance of the world is changing and you're completely oblivious to it.
Ready, partner?
Locked and loaded.
However, all was lost with Raccoon City.
You'll be needing a partner, right? Someone suitable to join you in your new world. Oh, you'll find out soon enough. Everyone will.
Sheva, you don't have to do this. You can still back out. There are no more orders from here on in.
We're partners. To the end.
But now that your partner has arrived, I'll leave you two to catch up.
Sheva! Come on!
The right to be a god. That right is now mine.
Hoo-hoo-hoo. Resident Evil 5. Telling you. Great games. And by the time they hit the fifth one, they started to get a little more cinematic, a little more action-y. By 6, it was pretty action-y. It's pretty action-y. We were still dealing with random bioterrorism, zombie attack, probably generated from a girl that had cooties and then gave it to a boy. It's usually that way anyway. It all starts with the girls. So, you know, by 5, it got a little more action-based, and we were in Africa. So we started out with the Resident Evil series. If you're not a Resident Evil fan, which you should be, not the movies, the video games, by the way. The movies suck. You can quote me on that. Anyway, Resident Evil 1 took place in America, in Arizona? Where's the Arklay? I don't know. I don't know. Where's the Arklay Mountains? Where's the fictional place that took place here in America? Anyway, Resident Evil super fans, leave your comments down below. All right, the Arklay Mountains, America, a mansion, a whole bunch of white folks. I think there might have been like one black dude. He got turned into a zombie. Anyway, you know how it was back then. First guy in. Anyway, he's the first guy to die, turn into a zombie, get murdered by the evil guy, deleted. You know what I mean? Sorry. Anyway, then when we got to Resident Evil 2, we were like downtown Raccoon City. We were still in America. We were shooting everybody. Everybody was getting deleted. All the people. Everybody. All the colors. Resident Evil 3, same thing. Resident Evil 4, we were in Spain. Now, when Resident Evil 4 came out, the internet wasn't internet. The internet wasn't real buzzing. The vibe wasn't all like that. And I do not recall a bunch of people getting their panties in a twist and clutching their pearls over the fact that Resident Evil 4 was in Spain in impoverished Spanish villagers being depicted as animals with their pitchforks and chainsaws. But as soon as we go to Africa, as soon as we jump the pond and we go from Spain to Africa, now everybody's got to be virtue signaling and beating their breasts and clutching their pearls. And oh my gosh, you put a virus in Africa, that same virus that was in the Latin country and made the Latins look like zombified animals, and now you're making the Africans look like zombified animals because it's a virus in a video game in a fictional world. So they're mad about it. Mind you, when the game first dropped, we just seen the trailer together from 2008. IGN, who dropped this trailer, you can see that right there in the bottom. IGN, who dropped this trailer, gave this game a glowing 9 out of 10. Go search for it yourself. Go look it up. 2008 IGN. So let's see what IGN's talking about
with Resident
these
Evil
days, because we have worked our way all the way through the Resident Evil series with remakes. Capcom, shout out to you. Capcom has done a stellar job with their video games and the remakes that they brought out. So if you're a gaming fan, if you like survival horror games, adventure, by all means, dive into the Resident Evil series if you haven't before. If you are already a Resident Evil fan, throw them thumbs up in the chat. Throw them thumbs up in the comments down below after the video. Let me know. Let me know how many years you've been playing Resident Evil. But let's continue with the videos here, and let's see. This is our main event for the evening. Let's see where we are with the perceptions of Resident Evil 5. And then I'm going to do some shout outs. We're going to hang out for a little bit, and then we're going to get into one of the features, I'll call it, of Resident Evil 5 that I'm a fan of. All right, so here we go.
With Resident Evil 4's release last year, Capcom's project to remake the glory years of its survival horror series is complete. But as the game's post-credit scene suggests, the remakes aren't over. And so the big question is, where next? The obvious answer is a remake of Resident Evil 5. But on the game's 15th anniversary, it's clear that moving forward...
Oh man, you see those guys? Look at that. They're acting like savages. Savages. I mean, they're black people that live in a country of black people, but they're savages, even though they're infected with the virus. Make that make sense? The same virus that the Latins had in the last game. Or similar strain.
But on the game's 15th anniversary, it's clear that moving forward chronologically will take Capcom's remakes into the series' weakest era, an era of gameplay and narrative decisions best left in the past. Resident Evil 5 simply can't be remade, at least not to the standards of Capcom's best work. And so the answer is...
You see what he did there? He used the word standards. Not to the standards of their best work, their current best work.
Is not to remake, but to rewrite. Resident Evil is a survival horror series, not that you'd know that playing Resident Evil 5. Sure, it features a constant flow of horrific imagery, but Resident Evil 5 is an action game through and through. That's evident in its cover shooter mechanics, vehicle chases with on-rails turret sequences, and the constant rattle of assault rifles. Even its visual design evokes the sandy shades of modern military games that experienced mass popularity in the late 2000s. It all speaks to a series that had lost its way. Rather than reflect on the tenets that were the foundation of its experience, Resident Evil 5 looked to the contemporary gaming zeitgeist in an attempt to find a new lease of life. The result is an unholy hybrid of Resident Evil, Gears of War, and Call of Duty. It's as ugly and unwieldy as it sounds.
All right. When I first played this game, after Four is absolutely my favorite. Old school Resident Evil 4 was absolutely my favorite game. I cleared it 100%. I love that game. Front to back, loved it. So when I went from 4 to 5, I was slightly jarred, right? There was a little bit of a jarring, this is a little bit different, right? But I was completely invested. And there were some like shooting scenes off like the vehicle and stuff where I was like, yeah, this is a little different. They're taking it in a little bit of a new direction. But I didn't have any problems with it. I had no problems with it whatsoever. And there was a feature of the game, which I've already talked about, that I was thoroughly invested in. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, there was a shift. All right. I'm not going to front. I'm not going to, I'm not going to deny that. There was definitely a shift in the gameplay and a shift in the way that they laid out the levels. So let's continue.
This design appears to not just be a misguided attempt to follow Western successes, but also a misreading of its predecessor. With Resident Evil 4, director Shinji Mikami deftly reinvented the series through the use of a new over-the-shoulder camera angle. The perspective allowed for a more kinetic, action-heavy game. Despite this, Mikami never lost sight of the terror at the core of Resident Evil. Through the use of enemies that were strategically placed to provide undulating waves of tension and fear, and the inclusion of Ashley as
Yeah, you see this footage here that you're looking at. This is Resident Evil 4. These are all Latinos, or Spaniards. This all happened in Spain. So in Resident Evil 4, he's just, mowing down hordes and hordes and hordes of poor, unfortunate Spaniards. And now we're in Africa, to where the virus went. He's part of the virus extermination squad. You got to beat the bad guys. He's on Earth. What more do you people want? What more do you want from me? What's up, Bronze Flat Power God? Peace to you, man. Thank you for showing up this evening. It's been a hell of an evening. Had some technical issues, but as always, I will not be stopped. We are here tonight. Thank you for being here, everybody. All right, let's get back to our video.
your vulnerable charge, combat encounters were focused on surviving overwhelming horrors rather than dominating foes. Resident Evil 5, meanwhile, presents its enemies as waves to be gunned down with increasingly powerful weaponry. Their purpose is cannon fodder, a wall of meat to slow your progress through levels. And those levels are not location.
And what he completely fails to realize is that if you've played the new Resident Evil 4, you are a beast. You are a beast. You got CQC skills, you are a beast. That's close quarter combat for those of you who aren't familiar with the vernacular. Civilians.
To be explored. Instead, they are largely funnels that push you from entrance to exit. Resident Evil 4 may have replaced the series' traditional continuous structure with discrete levels in an attempt to move away from the backtracking-heavy design of previous games, but it preserved the spirit of locations like the Raccoon City police station. The village, Salazar's castle, and the island feature interlocking, explorable pathways that solidify these locations as authentic spaces rather than obstacle courses. Resident Evil 5 has no interest in this, with the majority of its stages being little more than corridors peppered with
But they're corridors based on the narrative of the story. That's all. It's a story. It had a narrative to it. It didn't have Yes, it had narrative areas that you explored. Okay, they were all based on the narrative, based on the story. It's like little dioramas when you're a kid and you make one scene of a outside of a house, then you make another scene of an inside of a house. It's like storyboards. Right now you're looking at Chris and Sheva are doing a little adventure inside a doctor's office that's run down or whatever. Then they have to bust out of the doctor's office and they're going to do a little adventure in a desert area across a town. Then they're going to do a little... They don't have to be one... It doesn't have to be one contiguous map that's all connected if you have a story that supports it. If you have a story that supports it, you can build the stage, put your characters on the stage, and have fucking fun. Have fun. I don't know. These people are journalists or so-called journalists. They're not gamers. They've never been gamers. And I think that's always been an extreme disconnect. And I've tried to be too fair about that, and I've tried to be too middle of the road about it. And it's, you know what? It's a pick. This is a case where I'm going to pick a side, which was always the side I was on, which is the side of being a gamer. But this is just the way that they illustrate this shit is just, he's blending DEI with modern perception, or what he thinks modern perception is. And he is completely ignoring the history. He's completely ignoring the foundation of where these games came from. And that's the same thing that Disney's done. And that's the same thing that these other video game companies have done. And I already gave you examples of that in the beginning, of the downward spiral that video game companies is in the midst of.
With dead ends to hide treasures in. Their lack of authenticity means no one will ever mention the Kajuju Autonomous Zone in the same breath as the Spencer Mansion. All this is to say that a—
Oh, did you see that? That was horrible. Did you see that? I'm going to play that back. That was horrible. That was violence. Let's do it again.
Kajuju Autonomous Zone in the same breath as the Spencer Mansion.
Oh.
All this is to say that a faithful remake of Resident Evil 5 would break Capcom's 7-year streak of brilliance.
But see right here, this is Village. I mean, is he racist to what were they? Western Europeans? Hairy cannibalistic Western Europeans? Are Western Europeans hairy and cannibalistic? Shit, maybe we're asking the wrong questions, y'all. Oh no.
Survival horror games. It's telling that the series' reset point, Resident Evil 7, was a reinvention of the very first game, a haunted house that grew ever larger as you unlocked new rooms by solving its puzzles. Clever reinventions of this base conceit is the key to Resident Evil's success, be that dropping an unstoppable force into the house's corridors, such as Resident Evil 2's Mr. X, or expanding the scope of the house. Resident Evil Village's titular location is effectively a giant—
Our homeboy just described 2 different types of games. We can't have a third. We can't have an action heavy, right? So we have the action survival. We have the first person action, but we can't have an action heavy adventure. You sure that's what that this is the road he wants to go down? Is that the road, excuse me, that he wants to go down? Or is he going down another road? Let's see. We'll keep watching.
Manner. Its corridors are streets, and its rooms are houses. Resident Evil 5's stage-driven structure is simply inferior to this design. A modern recreation of it would only further highlight its flaws, especially coming in such close proximity to masterclasses like the remake of Resident Evil 2. Remakes can, of course, completely redefine the structure of their source material. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, for example, is recognisably an updated version of the classic RPG, but its world design and gameplay mechanics—
I can't wait to get my hands on Final Fantasy. Over on Cat and Poncho, that's at C.I.P. If you haven't subscribed to Cat and Poncho Gaming. Over there, I'm going to be playing through. I might play through 15. Everybody hates on 15, but I will definitely be playing through 7 Remake, and then I'll be playing through this once it comes out. So look for it.
Are a world apart from the 1997 original, and so you could argue that Resident Evil 5 is actually the Resident Evil most in need of a remake. A whole new environmental structure and scenario design that reins in the action and dials up the horror would bring it in line with Capcom's other remakes. But all of this doesn't account for Resident Evil 5's most notorious problem: racism.
Y'all ready?
All infected.
Set in a fictional West African country, Resident Evil 5's primary antagonists are black people. Yes, it's technically the Ouroboros virus that protagonist Chris Redfield is fighting.
Okay, so it's technically still the same virus, but...
Ouroboros virus that protagonist Chris Yes, it's technically the Ouroboros virus that protagonist Chris Redfield is fighting, but the parasite's host is depicted as a nation of mobs and primitives who are violent even before their infection. Intentionally or not, Resident Evil 5 positions Africa as the Dark Continent, an uncivilized world harboring a diseased population that needs gunning down via...
Bro. Has he ever been to Africa? Do white people travel? White people, do you travel? Inquiring minds would like to know, and perhaps your skills are needed at IGN. I'm not sure which division of IGN's, maybe the UK division. I don't know. But the West is suffering. We need intelligent white people to help your white people, because these white people don't travel. They don't travel. They're just resort white people, I think. Let's rewind this a little bit. Let's rewind this to the root of the issue here, folks. Root of the issue.
Horror would bring it in line with Capcom's other remakes. But all of this doesn't account for Resident Evil 5's most notorious problem: racism.
I mean, depending on the time and place and geographical location, you very well may find a jungle tribe of individuals with brown skin. And if they were bitten by a zombie virus or infected in some way, shape, or form, based on my knowledge of fictional universes and fiction in general, I'd say that's a pretty fucking accurate picture right there. What's the problem? The Latinos looked like shit in the last game. Have we not played Last of Us? All the white people that look like shit in that game?
They're all infected.
Set in a fictional West African country, Resident Evil 5's primary antagonists are black people. Yes, it's technically the Ouroboros virus that protagonist Chris Redfield is fighting, but the parasite's host is depicted as a nation of mobs and primitives who are violent even before their infection. Intentionally or not, Resident Evil 5 positions Africa as the Dark Continent, an uncivilized world harboring a diseased population that needs gunning down via Western intervention in the name of global security. This insensitive treatment of people of colour was hotly debated even as early as Resident Evil 5's debut trailer, with writers such as Ngai Kroll and Stephen Totillo pointing out the game's uncomfortable post-colonial imagery. The arguments and think pieces continued well into the game's release window, with IGN's own former editor-in-chief Hilary Goldstein having also wrestled with the subject. But that was 2009, a time when race was apparently a debate rather than a reality.
Back when race was not a debate, but when race was something that we were coming to grips with, and it wasn't as taboo as it's all of a sudden become because of DEI.
2020s, in a post-Black Lives Matter world, there is only one acceptable response to a white man
Pause. I'm rewinding this.
reality. In the 2020s, in a post-Black Lives Matter world, there is only one acceptable response to a white man shooting waves of Africans for an entire video game: no.
Bro. All right, we're going to stop right there. Team Replay, anybody who's out there in the audience, folks who catch this stream years and years and years down the road, because nothing on the internet ever goes away, please comment, have a discussion. Start the discussion here, all right? You have a forum. Use my comment section and explain to me how this is wrong. Educate me. I'll wait. No, just kidding. But leave your comments. Let me know. How is this wrong? We've deleted Russians. We've deleted aliens. We've deleted aliens. We've deleted aliens. We've deleted bugs. We've deleted. I'm waiting for the ACLU to start talking about the PETA. PETA, step up, PETA. PETA. Come on, step up. Y'all was crazy about the Mario shells. Mario Brothers depicts cruelty to animals. Can a motherfucker have fun? Damn.
There's one
Punch
thing
him.
I do.
Punch them all. Kick him. Do it, Chris.
I have a job to do.
Hashtag
and I'm
Team
gonna see it
Chris
through.
Redfield.
Remakes may be able to redefine their source material, but there's only so many changes you can make until it's not a remake at all, but an entirely new game. And if you take Africa out of Resident Evil 5, is it Resident Evil 5 anymore? Even
No.
with a vastly improved, more sensitive take on the continent, perhaps one with a black protagonist and a more empathetic look at
Hold up. Hold up. Did he just blackwash Chris Redfield? So he just Little Mermaid. Mind you, I've watched part of this before, but not the whole thing. That was new. So he just Little Mermaid, he just Disney 2023 Little Mermaided Resident Evil 5 and said, perhaps with a black protagonist. You pompous fuck. Why do you assholes consistently do that shit? It's like a playbook. Like there's a playbook for baby mamas and for the I don't need a man crowd. There's a playbook for the baby daddies and fuck that whole crowd. Now there's the DEI asshole crowd. You're just an asshole, bro. I'm gonna wind this dumb shit.
you can make until it's not a remake at all, but an entirely new game. And if you take Africa out of Resident Evil 5, is it Resident Evil?
Is it Africa or Africa? You said it like you were a fucking South African, one of those South African white folks. You said it like you was a hood ass UK. Say the fucking letter A. Africa. The fuck is wrong with y'all? Fix your fucking tongue.
It's not a remake at all, but an entirely new game. And if you take Africa out of Resident Evil 5, is it Resident Evil 5?
You take Africa out of Resident Evil.
Entirely new game. And if you take Africa out of Resident Evil 5, is it Resident Evil 5 anymore? Even with a vastly improved, more sensitive take on the continent, perhaps one with a black protagonist and a more empathetic look at the outbreak, the experience would simply be too divorced from the original to hold the name Resident Evil 5. So where does Capcom go now? Personally, I'd look backwards. Code Veronica is an ideal candidate, as is the original.
Let's skip the here. So here's where we've gone with racism, right? Here's where we've gone with racism. We've taken DEI and we've said, let's not be racist to the Africans. Let's just fucking take them out of the game altogether and let's just ignore that fucking game and let's just bring up the other game with the white girl. Am I wrong? I mean, they're probably supposed to be Asian girls, but in America, you know, for Western audiences. So let's just omit Africa altogether. Let's just ignore the problem. It's problematic. Let's sweep it under the rug, like you did with slavery, like you people have done with race relations. You see how fucking stupid this is?
Resident Evil. But if the only way is chronologically forward, then a total rewrite of what comes next is the logical path. Because what followed Resident Evil 4 was not...
And here we go again with that DEI, Disney, ESG bullshit. Let's just totally rewrite it. Let's totally rewrite the story of the Little Mermaid girl. We've already bastardized the original, where she was a murderer, deleter, whatever, YouTube. I ain't monetized, I don't care. So the girl was the deleter in the original. Like most fairy tales, they were absolutely horrific. But Disney has sugarcoated everything and poisoned everyone to believe that this capitalistic this capitalistic economy and these Disney stories are the future of people's lives. This fantasy fairy tale, selling people dreams instead of the realities and evils that were in the originals. And then you turn around and you rewrite the stories all together. Blackwash them, whitewash them, blackwash them, whitewash them, Asian wash them. No soul. No art. Nothing. It's mass-produced shit. And whoever this dude is, I don't give a fuck. Whoever this fuck is that works for IGN that wrote this art, that did this report, He's another sheep, programmed by all this bullshit. Again, I sat on a DEI team. I worked with the consultants. I'm black too. I'm sick and tired of being the raisin in the sun, the only black person in the fucking room half the time because most of y'all ain't into technology. It's not a deficit of people and deficit of women and this and deficit of black people, and y'all don't do shit. So I've already been there. I've already stood for what we are supposed to stand for in these cases. These people taking these games and this perception are running rampant. They're radicals. They're taking these concepts, they're virtue signaling, they're talking about shit that we don't even care about as brown, black people. Nobody gives a fuck. Again, I had fun playing this game.
One terrible game, but two. Resident Evil 6 tripled down on the action-packed, set-piece heavy shooter design,
Yes,
to the
it
extent that
did.
much of it could be mistaken for a
Yeah, and I mentioned that before. From Resident Evil 5 to Resident Evil 6, they just ramped up the action. It was great. It was great. Also, at the same time, they were dropping a lot of movies, not the live-action people movies, but the animated CGI flicks. They have a series of animated CGI movies for Resident Evil series that you might want to explore. They're actually really, really good. And I'm telling you, they're way better than the Mila Jovovich flicks. Those are just, that shit, I fall asleep in that dumb shit. I don't think I've ever watched one of those all the way through.
third-person Call of Duty spin-off.
Oh, no, the first one I did because Michelle Rodriguez was in it. And I like her little fine ass.
Were it not for the monsters. Its restrictive level design practically puts you in a chokehold, forcing you to endure a barrage of bombastic moments that have no interest in evoking any sense of fear. Resident Evil 6 is a survival horror, only in that it's a horrible game that you have to survive playing. But this time around, it doesn't have to be like that. Capcom now has the opportunity to ignore the past and completely reinvent this chunk of the timeline. In Resident Evil 4 Remake's post-credits,
You remember when Disney rewrote a chunk of the entire fucking Star Wars timeline? Pepperidge Farm remembers. So did Disney stocks.
scene, evil mastermind Albert Wesker details his plans for world domination to Ada Wong. Reflected in his glasses is an image of Excella Gione and the Stairway of the Sun, two significant plot elements from Resident Evil 5, which indicates Capcom's intentions. But there's more to consider. This scene is largely a replication of the sequence from Assignment Ada, a non-canon chapter from the original Resident Evil 4. Its shift from unofficial to canon points to a willingness to change. Furthermore, the end of this scene is completely rewritten. When learning of Wesker's plans, rather than dutifully deliver the stolen Las Plagas sample to him, Ada betrays her shadowy boss and forces her helicopter to turn
That's because Ada's beautiful. She's allowed to do whatever the hell she wants. Look at her.
around. In this moment, the future of Resident Evil becomes unclear. Capcom has given itself the freedom to do whatever it wants. I just hope it's not a remake of Resident Evil 5. For more on
Bro, you're fired.
Want to go from there?
You're fired, bro. We're just going to ignore that dude. He's done. This whole virtue signaling thing is just, hey, continue. Society, continue to do this dumb shit because I'll have content forever. I'm fine with it, but it's not good for people. This isn't good. This thought process, going down this road, we should be working to heal wounds and not causing more. I'm not even going to talk about causing wounds. I'm not even going to talk about what declaration was made on Easter Sunday. But we'll talk about that in another stream. Ladies and gentlemen, I have before you Shiva Alamar from the game Resident Evil 5. She a baddie. So I've always been curious when concepts are drawn up and you come up with like a character in a video game. Their motivations, what they look like, their representation, well, now everybody's into their orientation and what they do in the fucking bedroom. Nobody cares about that. But I've always wondered, how do you conceive a character's motivations in a book? And then a movie as I grew up, I was exposed to, and then a video game, what the character looks like, where their life started, what kind of obstacles they've had to face, if it comes from, if the writer's pulling from themselves, or if the writer is conceiving this just out of their own imagination. So once you come up with all that and you lay out what you have here on screen, which is a concept panel of a character, in this case, a baddie, I always wondered, like, well, how do they make the video game? Like, well, how does that all go into it? So in this case, what they did was they found those two baddies, y'all. Two baddies, y'all. Two of them. On the top, we have Miss Karen Dyer. And on the bottom, we have Miss Michelle Van der Water. All right. So the way this works in the case of Shiva, they hired a body actress, body and voice. And they hired a face actress. So to start off with, Miss Michelle Van der Water, Miss Michelle Van der Water is the face model. She's the face of Shiva. They took her, scanned her face in, and said, boo, beautiful character. There we go. And much like in the beginning of all this, where we talked about Stella Blade, and the fact that Stella Blade is a very, 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 very real woman with a very, very, very real body and body proportions that diversity, equity, and inclusion does not find attractive because it doesn't represent the vast majority of women who don't give a fuck about their bodies. So let's look at our friend Shiva. Karen Dyer is the woman who played Shiva. Her IMDb is glistening with talent. Let's get into it. Miss Dyer has played many roles, and she also goes by the name of Eva Ladair in Hollywood. That is her Hollywood name. And Miss Ladair, while she may be married, I am simping, I am. She is beautiful. She is beautiful. And our friend, Miss Ladair, was also in a movie that I enjoy to watch every now and then. A movie by a Southern rap group, Outkast, Idlewild. Yeah, if you remember Idlewild and you remember the lady right at the beginning when they first show the speakeasy, the club, and she's a fire blower, a fire breather. If you know, you know, because I remember that scene quite vividly. Let's continue. Ah, there she is. Unrealistic body standards. Unrealistic. She couldn't possibly be a real woman. Not at all, right? Another one of her pieces that she did, another work. Oh, look. Body standards. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. The proof. That is our actress. That is our friend, Miss Ladair. A black woman, by the way, representing black people in a game about a virus in a black country. with a body that is absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Boom. There's Sheva, ladies and gents. Just like Eve from Stellar Blade. Again, we have the most bizarre and radical pendulum swinging taking place right now across society, and it needs to stop. These are very real individuals. These are very real concepts. These are very real people coming up with imaginary stories, and damn you for stopping them from doing it. I mean, this is what video games are. They're a place to lose your imagination and lose yourself, use your imagination, and envelop yourself in something other than the realities that you come from, to become someone else, to do things you've never done before. And while representation in a lot of areas is lacking, and while there are things that can be improved, this is not the way to do it. This is not the way to go about it. And all these companies are going to do is generate bitter sentiment and cause problems down the road, such as what we're seeing. Again, Disney profits, the turnover rate of, the return rate on movies, the return rate on video games. The newest Suicide Squad video game was an absolute bomb because the game was shit. And again, a very, very big, influential DEI company was behind that. So anyway, y'all, that's what I got for tonight. As always, I am here to share knowledge on the fuckery that's going on with society, with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Technical issues aside, thank you very much for being here. Team Replay, be sure to hit the like, ring the bell, subscribe, share it out to your friends. Everybody, peace, be safe, and big up yourselves.
It was a provoking challenge, and nowhere did the challenge provoke more averaging a peak-to-peak, I'd say, of about 0.1 amp. To develop and introduce America's first all-electronic television system.
But Mr. Bishop, this sort of thing is going on all the time. And if something isn't done about it now, someone will... I'm in the airlock now, and it's dumped to, first I dumped it to 9, and then it crept back up to 9.5. I dumped it again, and it's sitting at 8.5 right now. And
Nancy feels that a newspaper, any newspaper, has the obligation to deliberately deal with those things which demand public attention. How do you feel about the controversy?